Thank you, good people, for your thoughts and non-prayers, and welcome back to another episode of The Nonprofits. This show is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the separation of religion and government and promoting positive atheism. To my left here, we have Neil, the 604 atheist. Next to him, we have Laura Magee, otherwise known as Unapologetically Me. And then we have Phoenix, a returning Nonprofits host. Thank you all so much for being here. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to this channel on YouTube and click the like button below and set the notification bell to on so you are always notified when a new episode premieres. Watch our newest episode premiere at 3 p.m. Central Time on the Nonprofits YouTube channel every Sunday. That premieres immediately after Talk Heathen and immediately before the Atheist Experience. You can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/thenonprofits. Feel free to join us at our social media outlets. They are fan-run, by fans, and for fans, just like you. You can find most of the Nonprofits host at the Atheist Community of Discord by going to tiny.cc/ACA Discord, and on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/nonprofitslive. Support the ACA at smile.amazon.com and select the Atheist Community of Austin as the beneficiary organization. If you find yourself already shopping at Amazon, we encourage you to use this link to do your shopping. If you find yourself not wanting to shop at Amazon, we completely understand why. Tell us what you like and what you don't in the comments, and email us at nonprofits@atheist-community.org. That's nonprofits@atheist-community.org. As with all of our shows, links to the topics and the news we discuss are available in the description below. Feel free to pause this video, read the material yourself. Don't just take our word for it, but make sure to come back and hear our discussion after you read it. All right, how we doing tonight, hosts?
Awesome.
Now that I'm done blabbing, yeah, Phoenix,
how are you doing?
You had quite the challenge before the show. It's that 2 liters.
Yeah, I already downed one of these while waiting.
And I'm the one that has to him.
Nonprofits powered by caffeine.
Not all of them.
Yeah.
Neil's got his own power source up there in Canada.
Yeah. The one soda that actually has actual orange juice in it, as opposed to a certain somebody's orange flavored beverage.
Orange colored contains no actual oranges. I wonder who we are talking about. I love you, Puck. All right, folks, let's go ahead and get started here. So for our first segment, we're actually going to be opening with a looking back to a pioneer atheist.
Looking back.
I always love those interstitials.
Oh, yeah.
Phoenix, I know you have a lot to say about this, as she was a fellow Austinite, so go ahead and take us away.
All right, so we have, today we're looking at Madalyn Murray O'Hair, also known as the most hated woman in America. And she earned that by running the lawsuit of Murray versus Curlett, which eventually ended up branching into being merged with the Abington School District versus Shimp federal case, which got school-mandated prayer banned. So that is what earned her the title of the most hated woman in America. Those two were... it was interesting. One's going with... they're both forcing Bible readings in schools or prayer, and one's that started out with her local school district mandating it. The one it merged with was a state law that mandated it. So it really, and I think there was, I can't remember the exact number. There's like 17 or somewhere between 17 and 25 states that had similar laws on the books. So it ended up affecting all of those states.
Yeah, her son was forced to do it or something, right?
He was 14 at the time when the lawsuit was done. He was the victim.
Right.
He was a designated victim of the lawsuit. And that was actually before that case finalized, she founded American Atheist, originally the Society of Separationists here in Austin, actually, back in 1963. And she completed that case as one of the first things she did. And while she's in charge of American Atheists, she ended up having a plethora of lawsuits that she ran in protection of church and state separation. And I'm not even going to go into that because it's an exhaustive list.
It is quite a list, absolutely. Let me just ask you a clarifying question real quick.
Yes.
Did they ban praying in school, or did they just ban state-mandated praying in school?
State mandated prayer. You're still allowed to just like today. You're still allowed to privately pray at school.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that the school can't tell you to pray or put it over the loudspeakers or so on and so forth.
Yep.
Well,
And I think that's one of the biggest equivocations that happens when people, when Christians specifically talk about Madalyn Marie O'Hare, is they say that she got prayer banned in school. Prayer's never been banned in school. If you're a student, you're free to pray on your own time within the school building. Nobody's going to stop you.
The school board, Article 6 of the rules of the board for her local school district says, for opening exercises, each school, either collectively or in classes, shall be opened by the reading without comment of a chapter in the Holy Bible or the use of the Lord's Prayer.
Oh my goodness!
And it actually specified which version of the Bible to use as well.
So that's where I was going to interject, is it wasn't just about praying in school, which is already an intrusion on somebody's rights, but it was being forced to read the Bible as well. And so that's not commonly talked about in terms of, oh, she did away with prayer. But there was a lot more to it than that.
Oh, yeah. Right. And
Absolutely.
The Shimp case that it got merged with when it hit the federal level, Pennsylvania, it was a Pennsylvania state law required that at least 10 verses from the Holy Bible be read without comment at the opening of each public school on each school day. So,
and from my understanding, the kids couldn't be excused from it. They had to sit and listen through it.
Yeah,
right.
That's a lot. It's kind of crazy to think that, because I went to public school in the 90s. It's kind of crazy to think that this used to be the case.
It was when I was in elementary school. We used to gather in the gymnasium and sit through all that shit.
Yeah, wow. We've found a few videos of her giving speeches, debates, things like that. I think we might have those, some of those linked in the comments in the description.
Yeah, I have a link to her. Consider the Atheist speech.
That was a good one.
I believe. Yeah, it was very moving. I can't remember the year, but I want to say it was at an American Atheist convention, I believe, or some sort of atheist convention.
Yeah. She has it feels, I don't really know for certain if she did, but it feels like she really actually sparked the movement herself personally, because you listen to her stuff, and it's not just, these are the problems with their arguments. No, she is a real firebrand. She points out all the issues out there, and she is heavy on the call to action, which I practically never hear these days. Well, certainly not to that degree. I mean, she really lays it on thick. You have to act. Not acting causes such and such issues. You need to step it up.
Yeah. Otherwise, then inaction becomes normal, and action becomes the unorthodox. Action should be normalized.
It actually makes you partially responsible too.
Yeah, absolutely. If you just stand
gives you
by and
ownership.
watch.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So
No,
one thing I
that
like.
speech was very. Sorry to cut you off, Laura. That speech was just. It got me riled up. You know, my blood was pumping at the end of it. She was a 45-minute speech, and she nailed every minute of it. Anyway, sorry, go Laura.
No, I was actually going to say virtually the same thing. So we're right along the same lines. But what I really liked about her message is that it wasn't her atheist message is not necessarily an anti-theist or attacking the church message. It was a pro-atheist message. Like her words were like, atheists are there for their fellow man. They believe in themselves, not a god, and they believe in helping people, and they believe in what can be done in this life. And just her whole message, point by point, was very like just pro-humanism across the board. And I liked that message. Yeah.
If I may, I do have a selection of how she defines atheism that actually exemplifies that kind of aspect of her speeches. It's actually from the court case, how she defined it specifically for the court case. Your petitioners are atheists, and they define their beliefs as follows. An atheist loves his fellow man instead of God. An atheist believes that heaven is something for which we should work now, here on earth, for all men together to enjoy. An atheist believes that he can get no help through prayer, but that he must find in himself the inner conviction and strength to meet life, to grapple with it, to subdue it, and enjoy it. An atheist believes that only in a knowledge of himself and a knowledge of his fellow man can he find the understanding that will help to a life of fulfillment. He seeks to know himself and his fellow man rather than to know a God. An atheist believes that a hospital should be built instead of a church. An atheist believes that a deed must be done instead of a prayer said. An atheist strives for involvement in life and not escape into death. He wants disease conquered, poverty vanquished, war eliminated. He wants man to understand and love man. He wants an ethical way of life. He believes that we cannot rely on a God or channel action into prayer, nor hope for an end of troubles in a hereafter. He believes that we are our brother's keepers and are keepers of our own lives, that we are responsible for persons, and the job is here and the time is now.
See, I absolutely love that because it puts such a powerful positive message on atheism that combats that, you know, baby eating, devil worshiping, like people hating message that is out there. She really took a positive stance.
I hope I channeled her personality well there. I tried my best.
I loved your tone of voice.
I was captivated.
Got teared up.
Wait, we're not allowed to eat baby, so I have to put my baby flavored lollipop away.
I'm sorry, just for the show, get it out after.
But
one of the real quick, one of the things that stood out to me in that quote, I've actually heard part of that before, and I don't know if I remember her being quoted, but it's the an atheist believes that a hospital should be built instead of a church.
Yep,
nothing says the message of humanism more than that to me, you know, and so I hear her almost, I don't want to say conflating in a bad way, but combining, let's say, atheism and humanism, because without humanism, atheism is, you know, not a whole lot. And so her approach, you know, the whole positive atheism side of it, it's really important, and it's something we should strive to continue.
Most of what you said is basically humanism anyways, because atheism only addresses one thing, right?
Yeah. As we often say on AXP, yes, atheism addresses one claim. Yeah. But at the same time, it leaves a void behind, and so she does a good job addressing that that belief void, let's say.
Well, and she's taking back the narrative too. Like she's taking control of what atheism means.
She was edgy she would be edgy for our time. You know, she must have been incredibly edgy in her time.
Totally cool.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'd say that she's somewhere between Jeff D and Arn Ra when he gets pissed off.
Yeah.
I like it.
So her standard is somewhere in between there.
Yeah.
I like it.
Arn Ra, but angry.
Which is never fun.
As awesome as a person as she was, It looks like she has kind of a tragic end here. So, Phoenix, why don't you go ahead and keep telling us about the life and times?
Yeah, unfortunately, this is probably one of the worst ends anybody could come to. There was a former employee that had been fired because he had stolen over $50,000 worth of the American Atheists funding. But one day, Madame Mary O'Hare, her son, granddaughter, all just disappeared. Everybody thought that, and money disappeared pretty much right at the same time, about $550,000 of American Atheist funds. Most people assume that she ran off with the money. It took a journalist from Dallas to actually investigate personally to discover that all three of them had actually been kidnapped by this former employee, David Waters. They were imprisoned for, I think, about 3 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. They were forced to withdraw money from the American Atheists, converted into gold coins. The kidnapper and his partners went on a spending spree with all their credit cards and whatnot, cash and credit cards. Then the sad thing is that they killed the family, dismembered the bodies, put them in 5-gallon drums in a storage facility, put the gold into another storage unit in the same facility, and then later buried the body parts out in the wilderness. And nobody was investigating it until the journalist from Dallas actually went and started digging into it.
It's an inhumane end to a very outspoken humanist.
And it was all for the money.
And it was one of those things where it just doesn't line up. Like, it just doesn't make sense.
You would expect it would be, the religious outrage against, the way she lived her life, and, how much she fought against, fought for church-state separation. But no, she and her family met such a gruesome end, just out of one person's greed for money.
Yeah, David was a member of the American Atheists.
Formerly, yes. And interestingly enough is that he never really actually got to spend that money, because he had it all converted into gold coins. He had it stored in a separate storage unit. The first weekend he went out, he had taken some with him, went out with his partner, his girlfriend, whatnot. His girlfriend was the one that bought the lock, cheap $5 lock. Some teenagers from San Antonio managed to actually get the come up and break into the storage unit, because cheap locks means very few varieties on the keys, and they just bought a whole bunch and started trying the keys on every lock. Got in, stole the money, and spent the whole lot of it on a weekend in Vegas.
Wow,
that's nuts.
So yeah, Waters went through all of that practically for nothing. He ended up killing off one of the most notable people in the movement, literally for nothing. And yeah, she is, Madame Mary O'Hare is missed. What she did, it's just hard to compare to what she did anymore. And
yeah.
So it's kind of hard to recover from such a heartbreaking ending. So I think what's important for us to take away from this is what happened during her life. Like, she really pushed the movement of atheist activism into the public spotlight. She really was like the mother of modern day atheist activism. and like creating American Atheists, and think of how many different atheist associations and organizations have sprung up since then, inspired by her work or emboldened by her work. So I don't know, just to kind of spin it more in a
well, at least
try to go more positive direction.
Yeah, we got I think about like 30 years of activism out of her. So before we lost her. So
yeah. Well, that's a somber note. Neil, do you have anything you want to add before we move on to maybe not a happier topic, but a different one?
Well, it's sort of we came up with this all drunk the other day with a couple of buddies of mine. Where, you know how they got the spectacles, testicles, wallet, and watch sort of thing. Well, we got a new one for atheists: heart, knowledge, courage, and voice.
Ooh, I like that.
So you make an A shape, you know, like the atheist.
I like it.
People are gonna think you're crossing yourself.
No, it's a heart.
You make it really, really obvious.
Yeah, I got a friend who every single time I sneeze, he goes, "My mom being your mama Domino's," which he does it so much better than I do. But you break that down, he's saying, "My mom beat your mom at Domino's," about making the sign of the cross. So it sounds like he's saying something in Latin,
and like tongues or something.
It sounds like he's saying something in Latin, but he's actually saying something completely off the wall.
I'm gonna try that sometime.
Took me, I don't know how many years to catch on to that.
So one thing that I think it's important that we remember out of all of this is that we've seen a number of organizations spring up as motivated by the acceptance and normalization that got started by O'Hare and the American Atheists. Everything from the Atheist Community of Austin, you know, also founded in Austin, to the Recovering from Religion Foundation, the Secular Therapy Project, the Freedom from Religion Foundation. There's all sorts of organizations that have come out of this, and I'm just naming the ones that are popular in America. It's important to keep the ball. Yeah, exactly. It's just important to keep the ball rolling. That's why we're here. That's why we're doing this. That's why we do this show. Yeah, that's all I got on the topic. Let's go ahead and move to our second article here. We're going to talk about the interaction between religion and the gender wage gap. So Laura, you have quite a bit to say about this one. Go ahead and open this up for us.
Yeah, I really felt connected to this one for some reason. I did a lot of extra research when reading this one. So the article is titled "Religion is a Driving Force Behind the Gender Wage Gap. Study Finds." Okay, so a study was done where they took a whole bunch of different polls and studies that were out there, including from the Human Development Report and from Gallup polls and all these other international resources. And they found that there is still, I mean, we all know that there's still a gender gap. And there's all these studies about why is there a gender gap and what things contribute to it. And they've been able to eliminate a lot of different things that used to cause the gender gap, such as education or opportunity. So what is still causing this gender gap? And they found, I'm going to go ahead and read these numbers so that I'm accurate, but they found that in nations where more than 95% of the people said that religion was important, they were the nations such as Pakistan or the Philippines. Women earned as much as 46% less than men. And then in countries that are more secular, such as Sweden and Estonia, women made as much as 75% as men. So you can see there's still a pretty significant wage gap, but the gap between the religious countries and the secular countries is fairly significant. And so they did this study and they correlated all this data. And then they also found one thing that interested me that I wanted to point out was that they found that in most states where the gender gap is projected to vanish in as few as 28 years, they're the more secular states. And then the more religious states, now this is in the United States, the more religious states are projected to take as long as 109 years to finish closing that wage gap. So again,
that's astonishing.
Yeah,
that's 5 generations.
That's huge. We're not talking about an extra decade to get their stuff together. We're talking about a century. right? So there were a couple things that hit me about this. One is the correlation between religion and the wage gap and how they were able to even determine that. And what they did is they took surveys and found that people who identified more with religious values also put data into these surveys that were more pro gender wage gap. And I couldn't find the surveys themselves, so I don't know what questions they asked, but the report says that those who were more religious marked more positively toward the wage gap.
Yeah,
So,
these studies, I've tried to find those, find the studies themselves as well,
right.
and I ended up hitting a paywall, so I stopped there. You actually had to pay to gain access, but I do like that it actually covered 140 countries.
Right.
So yeah, it was expansive.
Yeah, and so one thing that I noticed was there's a lot of correlation going on here. So, well, I think that there probably are some ties. I'm not doubting that or challenging that. But there's a lot of different studies out there that show different reasons for the wage gap. So if you go to JSTOR, you can get up to 100 articles free per month from JSTOR, and they're all academic articles, peer reviewed. So I found a couple that showed different reasons for the wage gaps, and they could all loosely, like, even though they're different reasons than religion, they can be loosely linked back to religion because a lot of them are cultural differences. Like the culture saying women should be home versus at work, or women aren't as strong as men, or women have a duty to their families over men. A lot of these gender identity problems, they stem from religious teachings. So that was one thing that I found interesting with reading these articles.
It reminds me, there's a we actually addressed this several months back ourselves here on Nonprofits. There was an article that we went through that actually addressed sexism being enhanced by religious language, just exposing them with religious language primed people to express sexism.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that's how big of an impact this is. Just using religious language, sexism.
Right. And then capturing that in a study is difficult. So I can see where a lot of these studies need to be kind of like put together and sort of combed through. But yeah, I mean, even just women told in their churches that, hey, the whole separate but equal thing. Hey, you're a gentle, you're a nurturer, you're supposed to be home with your kids. Like, sure, you can go out and earn a career, but right.
Yeah,
so
it's always about the oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Nope, I was done.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's there's always a caveat on the end. You know, they say you're equal, you know, men and women are equal, but there's this and there's that and there's the other thing, and it's like, no. How about just stop it? They're equal.
Yep.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
Or at least they should be.
Or have it come down to physical ability or mental ability. Oh, you can do the job, great, do it. I don't care if you're a female, I don't care if you're a male. If you're capable of doing it, do it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I should say we probably shouldn't leave our non-binary friends out of this, so maybe we should say any gender.
Any gender, yeah.
Any gender. I'm not hearing Neil.
Yeah, sorry, I had muted my microphone because a train went by and completely forgot that I did that.
Oh, no worries.
What I was trying to say was every human.
Yes.
Every human. Yes, that's a perfect way to put it. Every human, regardless of gender.
I'd go with I'd go as far as every person, because maybe someday we'll be extending that what that encompasses.
What that means.
And that's a great topic for another episode of Nonprofits.
Oh yeah.
Go find us some articles. Go find us some articles. So here's my take on this. It's never surprising, but it's always disappointing. And disappointing is putting it gently, of course. Religion in general tends to be worse towards women than men. While I realize that's a hot take, let me qualify it. According to the study by the Academy of Management Journal, the gender wage gap, clicked the wrong button here, the gender wage gap, and this is a direct quote, is narrowing significantly faster in secular states. Moreover, experiments allowed for causal inference, revealing that gender egalitarian interventions blocked the effect of religiosity on the gender wage gap. Fancy talk for attempting to fight against the gender wage gap through, public policy, for example, does block the effects of religiosity. It does not completely remove them. Finally, theoretical and empirical evidence converge to suggest that religiosity's effect on the gender wage gap applies across the major world religions. And that's a point that I want to make sure we drive home. We're not just talking about Christianity here. I believe you said Pakistan, is that right, Laura?
Right, Pakistan was one of them.
Yeah. Pakistan does not have a Christian majority in it, but a lot of the states that we're talking about do have a Christian majority, and the tendency for these gaps to exist and be bigger in places with higher religiosity does not adjust significantly for which religion.
Yeah,
it's just the presence of religion.
Yeah, the studies did span most world religions, if not all of the major ones.
Yeah. And that's important because we're not just here to talk about Christianity. Christianity is the religion that we all encounter the most in our lives living in North America. However, there's a lot more going on out there in the world.
Yeah, I mean, let's just do it this way. I mean, why does it got to take so long? If there's a job position, assign a wage to it, and it doesn't matter what the fucking gender is, just pay that wage to the person. Period.
And what's the qualifications for it? Yeah, what needs?
Well, as long as they're qualified. Yeah,
exactly.
Of
course.
Quick plug here, real quick, because this is really making me think. Flashback to it. I just last month finished reading Hector Garcia's books, Alpha God and Sex, Power, and Partisanship. Both of those books touch on this subject, and I highly recommend both of them.
Yeah, definitely. No, thank you for letting us know about that. I remember seeing Hector Garcia on AXP, and I always forget to try to pick up a copy of one of his books, especially I was going to say Alpha God.
Right there.
Alpha God's on my short shopping list for let's say the next 20 books I'll read.
Yeah, I need to start picking up hard copies of these. Most of them are on Audible right now.
I've got on Audible too.
Honestly, Audible is my preferred medium if a couple things are true. Either if it's really dry subject material, really dry, a manual for converting atheists, I had to listen to the audiobook. But also it's really nice. And that one wasn't even so dry so much as it was just, it was an informative versus reading for pleasure.
I hear you. I'm listening to the Blind Watchmaker right now. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's a heavy one too. Yeah.
But yeah, I like it when the author actually reads their own material. That always helps. I always find that the author is more engaging than if they just pay somebody else to read it. Whereas if it's a fantasy novel or science fiction or something, you might want a voice actor to do that.
You want to know what I really hate?
What's that?
This one. They wouldn't let Andrew Seidel read it himself.
Really?
No. He doesn't get the choice?
Yeah. No, he tried, and they said, no, you have to audition for it, and he didn't pass the audition.
Oh, man. Ouch.
That's kind of
terrible. It's my book.
Good enough to write it, just not good enough to read it out loud. Anyway, back to the topic at hand. So essentially what all of that means, the quote that I just read about how it's multiple world religions, not just Christianity, is that, again, this is a correlation across multiple countries, multiple states, multiple religions. It's the presence of religion, which typically enforces a more archaic hierarchy that results in the wage gap. And that's the claim that is made by and essentially proven by the study. So speaking of the gender wage gap, here's a few fast facts that I went ahead and looked up just so we can get a baseline. These isn't so much pertaining to religion. This is just pertaining to the gap in general. So as cited in the research project by the Economic Policy Institute, link in the description, the gender wage gap exists at all income levels. However, there's the least disparity at the lowest end of the spectrum. That's the lowest wages, with women earning 92 cents on the dollar that a man earns, and the highest disparity at the top, with the 95th percentile of earners, women earners, receiving 74 cents on the dollar that a man earns. That is I mean, both are unacceptable gaps, but that is a huge gap. That is, I mean, that's 74% of the wages. That's
and it
insane.
shows women that the more they try to succeed, the further away they're going to get compared to a man.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, what message does that send, you know?
Exactly. Without changing the system that we're operating in, just continuing to use the same system, you know, clearly isn't working. The wage gap disparity increases if race is considered as well, with Black and Hispanic women making up the lowest, making the lowest amount on the dollar that a man earns. Meanwhile, white women make 81 cents on the dollar, and Asian women actually tend to make 90 cents on the dollar that a man earns. Now, none of that means that these hold true for every member of those racial groups. This is just large data pools that we're talking about and tendencies that happen. Lastly, it seems that unionization helps equalize the pay gap a little bit, as non-unionized women workers were paid 82 cents on the dollar versus the 89 cents on the dollar of unionized women workers. Yeah. And that's not adjusted for any other demographics.
Unions grant a bigger voice.
Unions
they advocate and they do,
Yep.
Exactly.
Absolutely. To close out my thoughts on this, the more I learn about the gender wage gap, the more I realize that action needs to be taken to right the ship, as it were. However, there's actions that we can take every single day. For example, I'm always told that this is a little gauche, but I think that there's a way to do it tactfully. Find out especially if you're in an hourly job or a service job, find out what other people in your role are making. And I don't mean by just going up to them and being like, hey, what do you make? But have those conversations and, you know, start to normalize that in your own workforce, because you might be surprised what, you know, your employer is kind of hiding from you as far as who gets paid what.
Oh, yeah. That's why
there's ways. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's why that topic's actually one of the biggest taboos in the workplace. It's because Absolutely. They don't want you to know.
They don't want you to know at all, because what they want to do is they want to pay you, the new person, less than the person who is walking out the door who you're replacing. And they always want to pay you less. They never want to pay you more for doing a job that, you know, somebody else was doing for less. Yeah, exactly. Like if you're doing a job for $15 an hour, the person before you is, if they were paid 16, you know, you're never going to get 16. They're going to keep you at 15 for as long as they can.
Yeah, the job I'm doing now, I'm making $15.25 an hour right now, but I came into it at $8 an hour.
Well, that's nice.
Took me 10 years to get there, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so that about closes out what I have to say on this. Neil, I noticed that you have some notes here that we didn't quite get to, so I'll go ahead and hand the floor over to you for a sec.
I put notes to this one?
Oh, I'm hearing an echo on Neil.
Yeah, not anymore, you're not.
Okay.
I put, hang on, let me get to them here.
While he's looking for his notes really quick, I can jump in. No, that's fine. I'll fill the gap if it's okay. Yeah.
Go right ahead, Laura.
I did look up those couple of studies on JSTOR, and there was one specifically that I kind of wanted to highlight a little bit. And I don't know if we can put it in the notes below, but that'd be awesome if we could. But it's called Gender Wage Gap and Its Associated Factors, an examination of traditional gender ideology, education, and occupation. And there's one quote that I really wanted to highlight from that because it goes right along with what we're talking about in terms of it being more of a cultural, religious problem than a education or opportunity problem. And that is, it says, studies show that women attain slightly more education than men and have higher graduation rates at all academic levels. Not only are women enrolling in college in greater numbers than men, they are outpacing men in graduating. And then they go on to say that there's a point where we just have to acknowledge that that the differences in types of careers chosen and the differences in advancing in their career are largely due to socialized beliefs about gender differences that reflect the same ideology that's maintaining gender inequality. So now I know that doesn't relate exactly back to religion, but again, we're talking about that intricate tie between religion and culture and how much overlap there is.
And that's one of the things about beliefs. As we always say, beliefs do not exist in a vacuum. Beliefs impact our actions. They impact our thought process. They impact the way we approach the world. And so holding those beliefs, you can't let them exist in your mind without letting them impact your actions. It's not something that human beings, that I believe human beings are capable of doing, at least.
Yeah, you can try
at least not doing very well.
Yeah, you can try not to, but it slips out one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, always does. Always has been.
The only note I really think that would be that nobody else has said so far, because I also wrote the projected to vanish in 28 years in secular states and 109 in religious countries,
crazy.
states, whatever,
which is insane, nuts.
Yeah. I think that's the most telling one that we've had so far.
Oh yeah, but there's got to be, there's a separation between religion and state. There should be a separation between religion and the work fucking place too. That's what I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that was quoted in the article as well. One thing I wanted to know about that though is where they got those numbers. How did they make those projections? So I get really fired up when there's good data in an article that I really want to use, and I can't figure out how they came across that data, because then I can't validate whether or not it's good or not. So I want to know what tools they use to project out how long it would take to close. I'm assuming it's trends over time, right? They're looking back historically at how the wage gap is closing. I know I'm using my hands, but you can't really see them. But they're looking over time about how it's closing, I'm guessing, and they're projecting how long it would take if it stayed along that trajectory. But it's not clear one way or another. Like, they could have just pulled those numbers, So it's a little distressing.
No, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was a projection based on trends. One of the interesting graphs, I can't remember if it was the main article for this topic or if it was the EPI study that I cited. I'll make sure to highlight it in the description below. The graph did this essentially. Let me see if I can do this well on camera. Where the men's wages actually started dropping as the women's wages were starting to move towards them. And it just goes back to kind of show that, there's a finite amount of money. And if most of it is being paid to men, then less of it will be paid to women. So as women's average wages rise, then yes, it would make sense, at least to a point, that men's average wages would fall. Now, as far as raising the minimum wage for everybody, that is a whole other topic that we can get into in another episode.
Yeah.
I'm actually worried about the adjustments that should be made along with that probably aren't going to happen. Separate topic. So
no, I was going to say that sounded.
I was like, I thought you were going to say
juicy. Yeah, go ahead.
We were waiting for you.
Yeah, like I said, I'm making $15.25 an hour right now, and minimum wage goes up to $15. I honestly do not expect my pay to go up at all.
Right.
Most employers, yes. What we're doing right now, the push to the $15 an hour is to adjust for inflation over the years from when the minimum wage was originally set. I forget who it was. Some politicians were, talking. I don't know what anybody's worried about because I made only like $9 an hour back then, and it's like, yeah, you adjust for inflation, you're making like $12 an hour on your first job.
Right.
Yeah. That was also back when you could just, kind of buy a car for a few $1,000s, like a new car. Depending on the year,
gas was like 97 cents a gallon.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And so it's just like, the proper adjust for inflation. And when minimum wage goes up to reflect the inflation rate, all other wages should be properly adjusted along with it, proportionally adjusted. But I don't actually expect employers to actually do that because
but Phoenix. Where will we get the money from? I'm just kidding.
I mean, in some cases, that is a valid question. We're talking about small businesses. That is a
Jeff
valid
Bezos.
problem. But yeah, there you go, from his stash.
Yes.
When I first entered the workforce, minimum wage for me was $2.85 an hour. So,
wow.
I know there were dinosaurs at that point. So.
My first job was like $5 an hour, and I thought it was so much. I was so excited.
Hey, not my current, but my last hourly job, I made $5 an hour, but I was wait staff, so I would also get tips.
So you get tips.
It would average between 20 and 25, but I never really understood the concept of my customers paying my bills and my employer just kind of being a facilitator for the transaction. That just never really sat right.
Yeah, well, I don't really.
We could go on.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Just one real quick thing. I don't really expect anything from my work, considering the fact that our CEO has had Ted Cruz and Alan West come in to give speeches to the press at our business. And we you got a pretty good idea of where that side of things is at as far as finding money for things.
Yeah.
All
right. On that note, let's go ahead and we're going to change topics a little bit here and talk about Scientology and its charity status, which is currently being challenged.
It should be.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Neil, you had an interesting take here, being our resident Canada man. Go ahead and fill us in as to what's going on with Scientology up north.
Well, there's this article comes from the University of Alberta, which is basically Canada's Texas. But anyway,
I did not know that.
So we all know what that means now.
There's a guy by the name of Stephen Kent who I guess he's a journalist or something like that for their for the university or whatever, and he said some stuff about Scientology up here in Canada, some pretty disparaging words, we'll call it. And he's received no fewer than, I think, 16 letters to the university about him. They're trying to silence him, I guess, because he speaks out about how they claim to have all this charitable stuff, but only a very small percentage of it ever actually reaches any charities of any kind. Now, the thing is, here in Canada, Scientology is on the decline big time. It's almost extinct up here. Let's put it that way. So,
good.
Very good.
Yeah, and to truth be told, it's kind of on the decline everywhere. Anyways,
that's what I've heard.
Yeah,
and they're shoveling all their money into Australia or something right now.
Yeah, I've heard something about that. I guess Australia has some fast and loose nonprofit laws if you're a religion, and for whatever reason they seem to think that they're a religion. I'm not sure why, but it's a cult. Yeah. It just is.
Well, Kent is literally Canada's probably is the top, I guess, expert on Scientology here in the media. So if you want to know anything, you can check out the articles that he puts out about him.
Oh, absolutely. And we have religion, sorry,
just any religion started by a guy who writes about, science fiction shit shouldn't be a religion.
Yeah,
right.
And the fact that they ended up getting their religious tax exempt status here in the States was because they blackmailed or extorted the IRS.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a lot of controversy around that.
They flooded them with flooded the IRS with every single lawsuit they could find, down to every single individual employee. Yep. And then if you give us our religious status and forgive all the taxes that we owe, we'll make those go away. That's how they got their tax status. I originally got that from Going Clear. The documentary.
I still need to watch that.
Honestly, when Dianetics came out, everyone and their monkey had that book, right? So it's not surprising that he was able to, we'll say, bamboozle people into starting this thing and getting involved with it, right? So.
Oh yeah, once you got a self-help movement going, you just kind of tweak it just a little bit, and then now you have a cultish.
Yeah, not to mention the name of it was so vague. It's like
yeah,
I remember. It's just Scientology. I remember as a kid I thought Scientology meant that you believed in science.
Right. Yeah. No, I thought that. Yeah, just as a teenager, without Google or anything.
Yeah,
it was
using
Scientology.
And using celebrities to help promote it and exploit, like that's just like what?
Yeah. Celebrities exploiting people since when?
Well, no. They were adept at exploiting celebrity culture to promote it, is what I mean.
Oh, that too.
And exploiting the celebrities themselves.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if we get back on like what they were talking about with the article and the and the the nonprofit stuff. One thing that really hit me was like there really is a fine line between a business, like money making, and then the nonprofit and the charity. And with the churches, what's frustrating with the churches is that there's almost no line whatsoever. It's all grayed out. It's expanded. There's no clear start or end to where the charity is versus where the business side of things are. Whereas with a normal business, it's cut and dry. And with a normal nonprofit, it's relatively cut and dry. And so I think what's really significant about this particular article that I liked was that it highlights that that's a problem without making it a Christian problem or something like that. It's like religion in general, and it kind of it generalizes the problem and brings it to everyone's attention.
Yeah, and how they're doing it is confusing as hell. I mean, they're gaining a lot of money because they're going for the big fish. They're trying to go for people with a lot of money, but they're losing at a very fast pace membership. So they're still trying to give the illusion that the church is growing by investing in real estate, and thus, okay, look, we're growing because look at how many more churches we have open, which is just buildings being opened up. But but their actual numbers as far as attendance, adherence, is dwindling at an exponential rate. And so they're funneling back and forth between the U.S., UK, Australia. It almost all ends up back in Australia. They're giving themselves loans, and the U.S. branch is giving the Australian branch loans. And I have no idea how the heck that works.
Because there's so many differences in the laws, right? You can exploit the law of one country because you'd be stopped in the other country. Yeah.
So they're just cycling the money around. It's basically they're using the different laws in the different countries to launder their own money.
Yep. I had an ex-Scientologist on my show, the Deconversion Stories. Chris Shelton is his name.
Yeah, that must have been a trip.
He spoke a little bit about that, actually, about how they do that sort of thing.
Can you say his name again? I missed it.
Chris Shelton, actually.
Oh, okay, right. Okay.
Yeah. Name rings a bell.
Yeah.
Yeah, he mentioned a lot of really nasty things that a lot of people don't know about Scientology. Well, most people know nowadays how shitstorm they are, but
it's been so...
Even then, though, I bet there's still more that we don't know, because that's how cults operate. They keep all the deep dark secrets, as hidden as possible, and deny and deflect.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and it's interesting because the Scientology was originally not a church at all. It was a for-profit organization.
Right.
and
wasn't there... Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. His wife is the one that's quoted as being the one that exposed the fact that religion is the best way to make money. She's the one that we got that quote from.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Yeah, was that there's the quote out there that like, hey, this is the way to do it, and
it was
they still get followers.
And it was after we had that quote that we had the Church of Scientology founded. So
yeah,
I've tried passing a collection plate around at like bus stops and shit. It doesn't work.
Incredible. I can't imagine why. People will give you like their chewing gum or something,
Yeah.
One thing that I wanted to add here that you may not know about Scientology, just a little fun fact. The Church of Scientology received over 30 PPP loans during the COVID-19 pandemic to the tune of about $4 million. $4 million. Now, these are loans. It's something that has to get repaid, but still, it's just they have all these millions and millions of dollars just sitting there. Why do they need the government money?
With how they're cycling money around, I'm sure that they got something set in place to actually make that to work for them.
Yep.
It's dizzying.
It is. It is. Phoenix, I'm going to hand the floor to you because I think there's a couple things that we might not have gotten to in your notes. I actually need to change my headset, so I will be right back.
Let's see here. We've bounced around a bit.
Yeah,
they've in Australia, just since 2013, they've accumulated up to $326 million since 2013.
Yeah. So that was one thing I found interesting is, I mean, it's one thing to be saving money for like this charitable event or that charitable event, but millions of dollars just dog-eared in order to go ahead.
Correction on the date. So that's not to today. That is between 2013 and 2019. We still we add a couple more years onto that now.
Yeah, some smart investments, and I bet it's quite a bit higher.
They got let's see here. They got Australia. They ended up getting 60 million. They went from 60 million to 172 million in that time frame, and then they ended up having 150 million in assets from the UK that they funneled over to Australia as well. And here's the kicker: is 150 million in assets from UK when there's only 2,400 adherents in the UK.
I know.
It's just like that. That's how. Yeah.
So my big question with all of this is like, what do we do about it, right? Like we can talk all day about legislation within, like, say, Canada or the United States. How do we better legislate churches? But now we're talking about worldwide issues where you can't tell another nation how to regulate their companies, and so people are pretty freaking smart, and if they can find a way to do it in a creative way offshore, they'll do it.
Yeah.
So my big thing is, how do we worldwide crunch down on this? And it's not just religions, just any of these financial.
Well, just to put this to home on just how big of a disparity this is, in Australia alone, Catholics, their capita that the Catholic Church has averages out to about $5,600 per Catholic annually. It's for Scientology, it's $102,535 per adherent.
Per person. Yeah.
Per person.
20 times more.
Right. And their numbers are dwindling. How does that work? Yeah.
Wait, is that 20 times more?
No, that's more than 20. From 5,000 to 100,000.
200 times more. Oh wait, is it 20? I'm trying to do mental math and it's not working.
5,000.
5,600 to 102,000.
200. Yeah, 200 times.
Yeah, 5 times. Okay, gotcha. 20 times.
Oh my gosh, we're all gonna look like.
our brains are fried.
How many of us got public school educations?
This isn't working anymore.
You guys,
I don't have any left.
You got to remember, spaceships are expensive to build when you're going to see Xenu.
Yes, they are. I believe it. Is it what's the investment ratio there? Like, how many parishioners do they need to fund one spaceship?
Don't forget it's a rocket plane.
Ask Elon Musk.
Yeah. Oh man, if they ever get him to convert to Scientology,
it's over.
It is all over because he's just gonna get his money under their nonprofit umbrella. That would
There'll
be
be a
bad.
Scientology church on Mars.
It won't happen.
Let's not even speculate on that. That's going dark places.
He looks at Scientology and goes, they're even loopier than me.
Yeah, seriously though.
Oh, no.
There's a subreddit I follow called Enough Musk Spam.
Ooh, I might have to find that one.
Yeah, and it's a smaller subreddit, but it just highlights all of the nonsense that man says on Twitter. Just from
I
for
follow
whatever
him on
reason.
Twitter. It's fun.
It's funny.
He's funny, but he thinks he's the smartest man in the room when really he just got dealt a really good hand and then chose to do a couple smart things with it.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. So I think we've thoroughly exhausted that topic, but stop me now if anybody has anything else to say.
No, I'm done with Scientology.
No.
Yeah, I was done with Scientology the moment it got started. Here's this great sci-fi novel. No, here's this great sci-fi novel. No, wait, it's true. No, really.
And it's a religion.
What even is that?
Yeah.
All right. So for our next topic, we're going to be talking about an FFRF lawsuit. That is the Freedom from Religion Foundation. So the FFRF does a lot of important work. They don't just sue people, but they do have a legal branch. I believe it's Andrew Seidel is one of their legal counsel. You can find him appearing on other ACA shows, including the Atheist Experience. We'd be thrilled if we could ever get him on this show. I'm sure that he's a busy man.
He was just on AXP last week, I think.
Yeah, that's right. I was going to say I knew I'd heard from him recently. I know he also does a few other YouTube shows.
Yeah, he also shows up on Matt's The Hang Up on a regular basis too.
Right.
Yes, I love that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we'll talk to our producer and see if we can get Mr. Seidel over here. But anyway, the FFRF, they were suing Alabama over a voter registration oath. However, they chose to drop the suit because Alabama changed the thing that they were suing over to make it more accepting. I guess is a way to put it.
Acceptable,
or
if you can call it
acceptable. That. Yes, of atheism. So the voter registration oath ended with "So help me God," and my big thing with that is it doesn't really mean anything if you don't believe in God. It's just fluffy language. And so if you want to, well, it means something intrinsically if you believe in God, even if it doesn't mean anything extrinsically.
Except there's language with the law there that puts it at it's punishable up to 5 years imprisonment if you falsify any aspect of that oath. So if you swear to God and are not religious at all, you don't believe in a God, then you lied for that portion of it and would still be susceptible to the up to 5 year imprisonment because that part was a lie.
Right.
And
so yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm done.
I was going to say, and so the problem with that is that there were people who refused to register to vote because they didn't want to take that chance and they didn't want to take that oath. Right.
Even if you tried to scratch it out, people were being they wouldn't honor it. You would be turned away. You would have your registration rejected, and you'd have to do it all over again. You can't do it and they're specifically told there's no way to do it without the "So help me God" without changing it in legislation. So yeah.
So when
FFRF.
Yeah. So what I think it should say, instead of this, the solution that they came up with, which was to provide a checkbox that says that the signer or the voter in question abstains from the last 4 words of the oath, blah, 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 just change it to under penalty of perjury, because that's what they mean by it anyway. Under penalty of perjury just means that, you're taking a legal oath, and if you lie in that oath, then you have perjured yourself. And perjury is punishable by law. It's I believe it's a criminal offense. You'll either go to jail or at the very least, have to pay a big fine. And so changing it to under penalty of perjury would have solved this. the solution that Alabama came up with was, in my opinion, more of a half measure, which was by providing a checkbox. However, it's a step in the right direction, and I wish we had our interstitial. I'm just kidding.
No, so
that whole thing going.
So my issue here is that FFRF dropped the case or dropped the suit. I don't think they should have. I think they should have kept on pressing until it was taken entirely away. Because right now, think about it, whenever you're filling out a contract, whatever, it's common to go, okay, this is an exemption. How do you ever really read all the small print, the fine print and stuff? Usually, you don't. Whatever box is checked automatically, people don't usually change it. So you get more people agreeing to something if you're automatically already enrolled in it than when you're not. This is the same thing applies with this. The default is the "So help me God."
Right.
And unless people read the fine print, they're not going to check that box and get stuck with the "So help me God" anyways.
And I think for a lot of people, that's sort of a technicality they don't really think much about. Like, unless they're specifically against it. Most people, even if they don't believe in God, they just don't care. But I still think, I mean, I find the words problematic for a different reason, but I kind of agree with them dropping the case only because there's so many more fish they're going to go after, like especially in Alabama.
And so, but they're still violating the separation of church and state with this, and they're setting that violation as the default. If anything, they should just remove it entirely and be done with it. But if anything, if they want to keep it in, make the "So help me God" be the option, not the default.
Yeah, make that be the checkbox.
Yeah, and I like what Martin said with the under penalty of perjury, which is more accurate anyway.
Yeah, that's what they mean. You know, and like I said,
that's what it actually does mean. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
We got some echo with you.
I'm not sure why.
Strange. No worries, it's gone now. But yeah, I'm not a huge fan of fluffy language when it comes to anything relating to law or business or science. If you want to write a nice poem, that's great. Don't legislate from that poem, please. And yeah, the fluffy language here just doesn't help anybody and leaves out how many or what's the percentage of the American population that's a non-religious affiliated? It's like 20%, something like that now.
No, it's at about a third. I mean, we're at, for actual atheists, it's 26.7, according to the study done by I can't remember the guy's name. He was a psychologist. I saw that too. Yeah, in 2017, I believe that study was done. He found out that atheists accounted for 26.7%, but non-theists, or at least non-religious, the religious nuns are pretty much a third of the population.
Yep.
So here's my thing with taking it out altogether and why I think it's a good idea. Kind of like what Martin was saying, but when you have something like "So help me God," that may or may not mean something specifically to a religious individual, and that individual might find those words to be important, but that it doesn't take away anything from them to have the different words, to have the under penalty of perjury. They're not losing anything. They can still make that promise or that oath to God while making an oath to the legal system. But the reverse isn't true. Yeah, go ahead.
What if I say "So help me Thor"?
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like it takes away from other things. It takes away from other belief systems. But taking away those words doesn't take away from any like monotheistic God religion.
If you really think about it, you put in "So help me God," you're really limiting it just to Christianity, because the other monotheistic religions don't address their God as God. They have Jehovah, Allah, so on and so forth. They don't actually say God. Christians pretty much are the only ones that actually say that.
Phoenix, it's God. I mean, I know him, you know him. Come on, it's God. Like, you know God. I'm just kidding.
Nope, no, I don't.
You find out I'm a plant. Just to chill. All right. So Phoenix, you had a bonus article actually here that we're going to have down in the down in the description. Go ahead and fill us in on this other action here in Arkansas.
Yeah, the FFRF has another call to action there. Arkansas is actually, it's today the Senate was supposed to vote on it. There's a bill. Let's see here. Which bill was that one specifically? That was the oh, it's hard for me to actually see this.
Are you talking about the name of the bill? Because I have it up.
Yeah,
I had it up. And
then 1701, is that right?
Yes,
HB 1701. Yeah, so the bill is they want teachers to have the option to teach creationism alongside evolution in schools. They want to make it legal for teachers to choose to do so in science class, specifically in science class. Not in a comparative religion class, science class.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
And here's the kicker. It's already passed the House.
Well,
it's already
passed
surprising. The House. And today is the day they're supposed to be voting on it in the Senate.
And this is public school and public charter schools as well.
Correct. That is one thing.
That's just crazy.
And yeah, I'm checking the site, the Arkansas state legislator site for this bill, and it's still not updated with what supposedly happened today. So we don't know what's happened with that and at the moment. But
can we start teaching in sex classes? Can we start teaching about the stork? Because
Well, so Neil brings up a really good point. So the first issue I had with this bill, just reading it, and I have it up right now. I'm gonna read it word for word. It says, to allow creationism as a theory of how the Earth came to exist to be taught in kindergarten through 12th grade. Now, here's the problem I have with the word theory. Scientists mean something different with the word theory than the colloquial use of the word theory. And so they're kind of sneaking in this word to make it sound like it's on equal footing with the Big Bang and evolution and other theology or other theories.
Exactly. It's not a hypothesis. It's not even
a theory.
Hypothesis.
Right. And that people,
it's just some idea.
It's not clear. Yeah.
It's lore.
It's an idea. Yeah, whoever said that.
Okay, I'm not pulling punches. It's fucking bullshit, is what it is.
Exactly. So real quick before we I was gonna see if we wanted to wrap this article, but if you have something else to say, please.
No, I was just gonna reiterate my point. I don't think I need to.
No, it's okay. I don't want to cut you off.
Well, no, I was just gonna say, like, it really is important when words have certain weight to them, and the word theory has a certain weight, and I think that has helped it get further along in the legislature than it should. And I really think that it's important that the scientific community and that activists really start getting better with politicians with getting them to understand the difference, because that word alone is important.
Since we're on this, I would like to really drive home what theory in science actually means.
The highest echelon anything can be.
So in science, you first start off with an idea. You get to a point where that idea, you refine that idea to where it's testable and falsifiable. Mm-hmm. That is what requires an idea to become a hypothesis. Mm-hmm. Then you test the hypothesis, you try to falsify it. If it succeeds yours, then you publish it to a peer-reviewed journal. Mm-hmm. It then goes and gets beat the crap out of by the entire scientific community, who nobody wants this thing to pass, because if it works, that sets them back, because it changes everything from the ground up from what they have to work with. So they don't want that to go pass at all. And when it survives the onslaught of the entire scientific community trying to beat this thing down to where they just give up, it's absurd to say that it's false at that point. Right. When it reaches a point where the entire scientific community gives up on trying to beat the crap out of it and says it's now it reached the point where it's absurd to say this thing is false, that's when they
becomes part of the theory.
That's when it becomes theory.
Yeah, it's
Theory of gravity.
That's right.
Yeah,
It works.
Yeah.
Let's
Let's
test
it. Look at that.
That's
Imagine.
testing the law of gravity. The theory of gravity is how
I
it actually
know.
works.
I'm misusing the term.
Do you know what theory the anti-maskers are testing right now?
Theory of how long they can go without no, I
Germ
won't.
theory.
Yeah, there you go. They say the theory of how long you can go without getting socked in the kisser, as it were. But let's not do that.
Came to blows with someone the other day.
We're positive atheists. We don't do that here. All right. So before we move on, I have a fifth nonprofit that I need to introduce who's already made a couple brief appearances.
hello.
Woodhouse has been so incredibly needy tonight. I don't know if anybody can hear, but he's just been sitting next to me and meowing very softly. Anyway, he needs to sit on my lap for the rest of the episode. So sorry about that brief interruption then. Oh, I will.
Woodhouse is your master,
all the
sir.
chin scratches. All the chin scratches. Oh, and he's getting down because he got his attention and now he's off to do cat business.
I was in the spotlight. I'm done.
Yeah.
As long as
He
we
just
don't have
wanted to
to
be
deal with
seen
the
on
cat over here.
camera.
That's right.
Yeah. He knows too. He always knows when he's on camera, even though he doesn't know what a camera is.
He just knows you're giving something attention, and it's not him.
Yep.
And it's not him. Exactly. All right. So we're gonna end things tonight on a high note.
Yes.
With
Italy.
government. Can you not? Sorry. I'll be right back.
We're going to end things tonight with cat problems.
We're going to end things tonight with Woodhouse eating USB cables that are charging my devices.
Oh, geez. They like that.
That's not a good thing.
So for our last article, we're going to talk about government censorship on religious grounds, specifically how it's being rolled back. So Italy, I learned something reading this article, apparently had, I should say, moral and religious reasons for censorship of films, which is just absolutely fascinating to me. Apparently they did not exclusively use an age-based movie rating system. Instead, they would just take out the bits that they didn't find were appropriate.
I like the way they actually said it.
Yeah, go right ahead, Neil.
The system of controls and interventions that still allow the state to intervene in the freedom of artists has been definitively ended. I was like, yeah.
I know, it's so authoritative. I love it.
Yeah.
The system of controls.
Absolutely. So they talk about a movie a couple times. There's a rather I don't want to say lewd because it's not bad, but there's a nude photo in the article. So I guess I should say maybe content warning. And from The Last Tango in Paris. Now, has anybody here actually seen that?
A couple times, yeah.
No, but I'm looking forward to it. Yeah.
Neil,
it's good. Check it out. It's good.
Why didn't Italy like this movie very much?
I can't answer that. You're talking about an entire country. Why the hell? How could I answer for an entire country?
Okay, what parts of it do you think caused the censor police
there's
to
a lot
engage?
There's a lot of, shall we say, risque moments and risque discussions and topics and risque people, you might even say. And when this was made and launched, that kind of stuff was during that era preferably kept behind the closed doors.
It was more taboo.
So, right, a lot more taboo back then.
We don't talk about that here.
Right. So
we do it, but we don't talk about it.
No, all behind closed doors. Yeah.
Because everybody fucks anyway, except for the asexuals, and we love them. All right. Anyway,
this is good.
But you get the idea, right?
Yeah.
You got to consider the time that it came from.
Right.
Where Italy, of course, which is the home of the silly hat wearing idiot. But anyway, yeah. So but it's also not surprising that they were sort of now realizing that sort of idea is ridiculous, and they let it go. Right? They said, "No, enough.
God,
Let's."
Amen. His neighbor.
Oh, sorry. I just said thank God.
Which one? Oh, none in
Any one of them.
Pick one.
Thank GAWD is like.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
Thank dog.
God.
But you get the idea, and now they decided, because Italy's always known for its romance, anyways, right? So it's not surprising that Italy and France. But anyways, it's not surprising. Actually, Spain too. Oh, Europe is pretty romantic, isn't it? But anyways, it's not surprising that Italy would be the country to do that today.
Yeah.
I'm surprised it happened earlier.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. That's what I was surprised by too. Just an assumption that I made here is possibly the proximity to the Vatican and the cultural influence that comes from there might have led to this lasting as long as it did.
Oh yeah, more likely.
Yeah. Now that being said, just a couple fast facts. 274 Italian films, 130 American movies, and 321 movies from other countries have been censured in Italy since 1944. Mm-hmm. More than 10,000 were modified in some way to comply with the censorship laws. So we're not just talking about porno here. We're talking about actual culture that they're just saying, no, you can't do that because we don't like it.
Well, keep in mind that their censorship does not end with the moral and religious stuff. They have political censorship ever since the First World War. That's just been extremely prevalent there. They are actually not registered as a free country over there. They're labeled as partly free.
Right.
So
that's
the degree of censorship.
That was the point that I wanted to make, was that regardless of if they can use more cuss words or show more sex or whatever, what was really most important is the freedom of expression and the ability to be able to express ideas that run contrary to either government or religious ideas, and to either mock or criticize them. So that to me is what I have as the big takeaway from this.
For sure.
I mean, nudies are fun, but I think that's important.
Don't forget though, for Last Tango in Paris, there are two versions.
Right.
There's R-rated and an X-rated.
So, with that being said, since I didn't have time to go watch the movie, I just looked at the IMDb page to figure out why it was banned, and oh my. The R-rated one has things that I've seen before. The X-rated one has things that I have never seen before, and let's just say one of them involves butter. Leave it there.
No, not healthy.
Go watch the film yourself. And
don't worry.
If you need any advice as to whether or not butter should be involved in your sex acts, you can watch Secular Sexuality on Thursdays. Hosted by Christy Powell.
Don't introduce Don't introduce anything new into your sexual repertoire until you've read up on it.
Yes. Agreed. Agreed.
We're not talking about the character from South Park.
Thank you. Yeah, I figured I'd get the little plug in there for my I'll say my favorite ACA call-in show and my second favorite ACA show, because the Nonprofits is my favorite ACA show.
Dear to the heart.
Absolutely. Not only because I get to be on it, but because I like talking to these people. I've during the calendar year of since we restarted in the 6 months, I should say, since we restarted the Nonprofits, I've gotten to know a couple dozen very unique individuals. You've all seen rotating through here as hosts, and what you don't know is that behind the scenes, we're all just chatting. We're sharing news stories back and forth. We have a group chat that is just, I have to keep it on mute because it's always going off. We live in we have hosts in at least 4 different time zones. And so anyway, I don't know where that anecdote was going, but I just wanted to say thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you. It's always fun to be here.
I hear you on the group chat thing. When I first got in there, I would just be falling asleep. Bing, 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 bing. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Oh no, I have to mute mine because I'm in 3 or 4 of the group chats, and I couldn't live if it wasn't on mute.
All of mine.
Yeah, I'm muting it all the time, and then coming back is or I'll just set it aside, come back a little bit later, and just how the hell in 20 minutes did I miss 180 messages?
Right?
Because Puck gets talking.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I was going to say, I want to say about 1/3 of them are from me and 1/3 of them are from Puck and
Johnny.
It's like, I'm not even going to try to catch up on the conversation at this point. Just
yeah, and Johnny, our producer extraordinaire, let's say, because he does so much more than just produce this show. But one of the many things Johnny does for the ACA is produce this show, and he is always involved and always keeping us on track and headed in a positive direction. So we got a great community here, folks. Let's go ahead and who wants to go ahead and close out this this high note article? Laura, do you want to wrap this up for us?
Oh, I'd love to. I do have one final thought that I didn't get to. And
yeah,
that
please.
was what I found most. Yeah, I love this. And it'll go on and on and on. What I found most interesting about this article was that it said in there that with these films being censored, it made them more popular, right? So the censoring of the films and the cutting out of scenes of the films made people want to go watch them. And I think that's really indicative of how important it is. Like, people really want exposure to information, and they want exposure to anything that's taboo. So if you tell them you can't do this, we want to do it, right?
Yeah.
And so I just found that to be really fascinating.
And yes, and when you have the censorship to the degree that they do in Italy, I mean, yeah, it's real popular. Here's a censored movie. First thing you can do, go online, download the uncensored. And the fact that it is so prevalent there that they actually revoked the censorship in a country where only 32% of the country has access to Wi-Fi is astonishing.
Yeah.
Good on them, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Alrighty, let's go ahead and just go through real quick. Neil, what are you up to in the coming week? Got anything exciting going on?
Well, you know, I do my show 3 days a week. That's pretty busy. And I do other shows like this one and Atheist Drinking Out Loud on Saturdays. And I'm a busy guy. And plus, my mom's still in the hospital. So I like to go and stop in with her for a few hours and see how she's doing. Yeah, she was in the ICU for a couple of weeks. She's out of there now, which is good. Yeah. Good. Possible collapsed lung. I'm not sure. We haven't heard back yet. But pneumonia. Yeah, it's got to go see mom, right? But anyway, she's getting better though, which is a plus. So
that's good. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Other than that, just doing my usual shit, staying out of people's faces because of COVID, and having beers and smoking
one
weed.
Bandana.
Yep.
I like it.
Washing
got one
my bandana
on your head and one more over your mouth, right?
Actually, I do have one that looks like my bandana. My roommate got it for me.
That's pretty cool.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Laura, what are you up to in the coming week? You got anything exciting coming up?
Yeah, I have got to work on getting a new video out for Unapologetically Me. I've got a couple different ones in the works that I want to get out. But I just put out on this last Wednesday a video or a podcast for Skeptic Hangout on politics. Cool. So if you guys want to get all argumentative about politics, check it out and then put your comments. Yeah, I figured that'll be a fun one. So yeah, that one, and then Skeptic Hangout, we're releasing them every single Wednesday, so look for those. And I will be on Ethan's channel, The Perspective, on April 20th.
Nice.
Yay.
Yeah, I can't
That's
wait.
awesome.
Yeah.
And Phoenix, what are you up to?
Not so much as far as the atheist front these days. I had my own channel going for a little bit. I got kind of burnt out on that, have a bunch of personal stuff happen as well that just pulled me away from it, and I'm wanting to completely revamp it and haven't figured out exactly how I'm going to do that. So it's been sitting stagnant for a couple of months now. But yeah, I'm still fighting off the idiocy about the COVID. I have a couple of coworkers that just bash the vaccine and everybody that supports. It gets insane. I've reported them multiple times to HR, and it gets really nasty. So yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I believe it.
Yeah.
I believe it.
Yeah. So.
Well, I hope you're staying safe, man, or doing everything you can to do so.
I am fully vaccinated at this point. I've already passed the 2-week mark after the second dose of the Moderna vaccine, so I am all set. I always wear my own personal mask here. So
nice.
Nice. I like it. I like it. Yeah, and I have my my first vaccine shot coming up this weekend. Can't wait to get my second. One note about vaccines, I always tell people, be sure to consult your doctor. Don't make medical decisions on your own, especially if you're unsure if you have all of the information. Please consult with a professional. Don't listen to just whatever your coworker happens to tell you, because I guarantee unless you work in a doctor's office, that person isn't a doctor either. So with that being said, we have to go ahead and wrap up this show. So thank you all so much for being here. And I need a better sign-off message. Have a great night.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks for watching, guys.